Islam, and I think we're back on. So we're back on with the lot with the Ustream. If they're not giving you what you need to be able to do what you need to do, then you need to study a little bit more. Islam, you just need to study a little bit more, and try to make those distinctions between what's feudal and what's allodial. So last thing I'm gonna read here: anarchy is the absence of or distortion of any kind of political authority, and this is how you can recognize it. Absence of or distortion of any kind of political authority and manifests as political disorder and confusion. So disorder and confusion, those are two things you always can know, telltale signs, right? Telltale signs. Thus, anarchy is a violation and disengagement from any cohering principle as a common standard or purpose. And this is the political and social condition of the past and present governments operating in monopolistic form in the United States of North America. So this is what they've been doing. They've been promoting anarchy. Islam, a major problem that plagues the people in these days is that politicians and personnel in the government have become so corrupt that they are warring against the people. This is a result of anarchy in government. Islam, anarchy and treason, by the way. Somebody in the chat. So it's 8:13. We got about 15 minutes left. I'm just gonna kind of close it there. I know I said I was gonna get to the other definitions, but I'll tell them to you, and you guys can look them up on your own. And if you really want to talk about them, hit me in the chat or in the message box. Get at me on the active space, and we can go in depth later next week. I'll touch on them. But change of venue was another word. That's on page 293 if you got Black's Law 4th. Codex, page 324 if you got Black's Law 4th. And I was going to make a note. If you're looking at subsection, which I was going to come out of the Civil Procedure book today, a little Civil Procedure handbook. And this is 3rd edition. 2013. You guys can probably find it on Amazon for pretty cheap. But 1444, subsection 1444, and this falls under 28 USC, United States Code, and all that good stuff. Part A and B, subsection 1 and 2. So just reading this, and I just really wanted to get this into the record. A, generally, except as otherwise expressly provided by act of Congress, any civil action brought in a state court of which the district courts of the United States have original jurisdiction may be removed by the defendant or the defendants to the district court of the United States for the district and division embracing the place where such action is pending. All right. Part B, removal based on diversity of citizenship, and this typically is what applies to Moors, because we're of diverse quote unquote citizenry, because we're nationals. They're citizens. They're clothed with citizens. Clothed with the privileges of a national, not necessarily the rights, but they have the privileges, with to a limited degree, of course. Number 1, in determining whether a civil action is removable on the basis of the jurisdiction under section 1332A of this title, the citizenship of defendants sued under fictitious names shall be disregarded. Number 2, a civil action otherwise removable solely on the basis of the jurisdiction of section 1332A of this title may not be removed if any of the parties in interest properly joined and served as defendants is a citizen of the state in which such action is brought. So that's why, as Moors, it's very clear, and it's very important for Moors, and why Moors stress, for the record, to have that name and judicial proclamation, on file, on the record, publicly, with your nation, and with others who would be, who would be party. Hold on, let me get the connection straight. Let's give you some kind of funny system here. Pardon me. Pardon me, all y'all on YouTube. Islam. So we're back. So yeah, it's you're going to. Let me just wrapping up because it's 8:17. You're going to run into a lot of issues. You're going to run into a lot of things, but the writ of error is going to kind of be that catch-all that you use when they railroad you, or when you're kind of behind the clock, or you've missed a couple of instances to put things back in their proper place and proper perspective, and hopefully move the court in a better direction in terms of dismissing the action permanently, or reviewing the action, depending on what type of writ you're talking about specifically. But the writ of error, more than likely we're talking about annulling the matter, or as some as some more saying, extinguishing the matter. So we are definitely trying and seeking for remedy, and oftentimes our remedy is just getting out of there, because as the prophet said, and alluded to so many times, if we understand this science and we apply it correctly, we would be able to stay out of the courts completely. Islam, we wouldn't have to deal with these corporate auspices. We wouldn't have to deal with these magistrates, because why? We would have our own body politic. We'd have our own courts or consular courts in operation, in effect already. But because of COINTELPRO and because a lot of people sold out, we're a little behind on some things, and until such other things get put in place, we're just going to have to make do on an individual level, Islam, as we have done and as we will continue to do. So nothing is new on that note. But with it being 8:19, I just wanted to give thanks in all honesty to the Prophet, of course, for this being able to even happen in these days and times, because he's definitely our prophet here in Northwest Amexem. If you don't know, look up some of the works that he did, look up his literature, read it, and let that be your guide. Don't follow New Naji. Don't listen to what I'm saying. Go see what he did. I can't even really talk about what the prophet did enough, in my opinion, but because it really has helped me, in my experiences, and I'm speaking just out of personal experience now. And this is before I even had my quote unquote nationality ID or anything of the sort. Before I had any paperwork or any of that, I was just a regular quote unquote sleepy-headed Moor, thinking I was a Negro, black or colored, African American or whatever, thinking all that stuff applied to me. And I was just studying, and as I foolishly tried to jump out there and apply certain things, inshallah, and it was the will of Allah that certain things worked, and as time went on and I, began to grow and understand more about myself and began to demonstrate that character or certain, under certain situations, yet again, inshallah, and in the will of Allah, proved itself again. So, and this is kind of going back to a conversation I was having before, and as I've had with different Moors over the years, in discussing what the Prophet handed down and gave to us, is that, and what Brother Jonathan was talking about in one of the most recent episodes of Moor Talk, the beauty and the design that the Prophet, had in putting science in the midst of the title, the Moorish Science Temple of America, alluding to the fact that if you apply logical and or scientific reasoning to your given situation or condition, or even hypothesis, you should reach the same conclusion, or you should reach the conclusion of the hypothesis. And that's, just basic science. This is nothing new. Nubuddha Ali was not necessarily profound in any sense in terms of mentioning those things. But the amazement, in my opinion, is the fact that he was able to take the science, right, of government, the science of religion, right, the science of, you know, what it means to be a Moor, and put it on paper, you know, for starters. The fact that he was able to do that in his lifetime is amazing. You know, to even sum it up is amazing, because you're talking about, you know, thousands and thousands of years of history, thousands and thousands of years of experience, you know, hundreds of years of and lifetimes of experience and law and fact and reasoning. And, you know, divinely as prepared as he was able to see that vision, and not just see it, but carry it through. And for that, I can, you know, give nothing but high honors. Islam. And, you know, to anybody that can't, you know, shame on you. You know, we're just going to agree to disagree on that. And, you know, it is what it is. I'm not even making, truth needs no apology. So, with that, I just wanted to say thank you. Like I said, it's 8:23. So next week, we might take a pause next week, depending on whether or not I get any good questions this evening, or by Sunday. So I'll leave it by Sunday or whatever. But right now I'm gonna ask: are there any questions, or is there any other thing that we want to get into? Because I want to change the format up, and if I don't want to do it next week if you guys aren't going to get the best that we can bring. You know what I mean? If it's not going to be in place, then I don't want to do it. I'd rather just, you know, pause for that week. But because I know we've been kind of going hard for a minute here, and I want to give you guys a break to kind of catch up and look over everything. Also, I want to let you guys know I'm not crazy. I know that the last class, we didn't catch the end of it. That last like hour and a half that we did there was not recorded at all. So I've taken it, you know, upon myself to set some time aside whenever I get the chance to do a pre-recorded, and this is going to be rare, hopefully, a pre-recorded class session kind of setup, you know what I mean? And I'll try to dispensate, you know, something similar to what I gave then, with a little bit more specificity and detail, of course, and, you know, edit it down for all those, you know, would-be busybodies, you know. So if you're typing up questions, let me know, you know, in the chat here, you know, drop your questions, drop your comments. Islam. So in the chat, they said, thank you very much. You have inspired me to complete my judicial proclamation and name correction, and it was sent out this Monday, so thank you for your inspiration. Islam, hey, really, that's the type of stuff that, you know what I mean, would bring a tear to my ear if I could cry in this instant, you know what I mean? But I'm just so excited. I really can't even, you know, spare the emotion. But I really am glad to hear that, you know, for real, like, for real, like 110%. Because the name judicial proclamation, right, if you haven't figured it out yet, that's going to be the basis of activating, right, your ability to do anything. You know what I mean? In terms of this more science, when you talk about being active and not passive, that name of judicial proclamation, putting that on the record, you know, going forth with that process and getting that started, that is, you know, going to be the best thing for you. Shouts out to Brother Vaughn Ill. I saw your question out there in chat, if I understood it correctly, and I wanted to kind of address that. When you're producing your writs, right, you can get a printer, right, a regular printer, any printer that handles legal size, you know, paper, and print your writs on that paper. Of course, it needs to be, you know, legal size, and I want to say it's like, and, you know, don't beat me up if I'm wrong, but it's like 8.4 whatever by 11, I think, you know, whatever legal size measurements are, you know, go look it up. Don't quote me on that, because I'm horrible with numbers and stuff, man. I have to go through too much. But if you're dealing with, you know, trying to get your writs out, yeah, it is 8.5 by 14. My bad, not 11. So 8.5 by 14. is standard legal documentation and length, right? And I didn't want to jump over there and waste time trying to look for it and all of that good stuff. But yeah, standard legal size. If it can handle that, length, then get you a nice little printer or whatever. Get you, stay stocked up on some ink, and do it that way until you need to do something big, and then just make copies, really, because you don't want to waste your ink trying to make copies for other folks' stuff. You know what I mean? Because people will do that. Trust and believe. If you're the only one with a printer on the block, people will be like, oh, for the nation or whatever. Nah, at cost, brother. Standard is typically whatever you need to get, depending on what quality of paper you're dealing with. Because different people like different quality of paper depending on what they're dealing with, right? But for really, really important stuff, you want to try to get cotton, or like a 100% cotton, or like a linen fabric type deal. That's for high end stuff. Or if you're talking about making originals for things, and then you can let the other copies just be standard, like white or like off-white beige. Somebody in chat, they were saying Staples provides document printing, so yeah, you can print your documents or copy them in Staples. And Staples, believe it or not, they will recognize your nationality. You know what I mean? I think you might have to draft it in lieu of, or some of them just take it off top. But they, they'll recognize your IDs, so to speak. So they recognize the exemption and the non-obligatory tax status. So that's just some housekeeping things to keep in mind, Islam. So shouts out to everybody, like I said, in the chat and who've been keeping up with the classes. These Friday classes, like I said, we're trying to do these every week, but we may slow them down to every other week, just because I got things, you got things, and I think we've kind of covered the more important things that I think you guys, time sensitive wise, needed to have on hand. So now we can kind of, as things come about, kind of just start talking about other stuff, man. So hopefully you're gonna see a lot more fun. Hopefully, because some have said, Nunaji, you're so serious. There's you don't laugh enough. I know you laugh more than that, and this, that, and the third. And sometimes they say my classes are kind of depressing because I'm hitting on some things that I think are very serious and time sensitive. And I would rather stay away from Rex 84 and stuff like that, because I don't want to have everybody crying and really show y'all some of the stuff that I've seen that verifies Rex 84 and things of that sort, because I just think that it just goes more so to promote fear rather than to bring a realization that you need to do something, and understanding that you need to do something out of responsibility, not out of fear, is more important to me. But understanding that, like the prophet said, we only learn at the butt of a sword, unfortunately. So, you may see some of that coming into play later on. But like I said, I want to try to stay away from some of that stuff because it spooks out too many people. But if need be, and if the questions keep coming up, I'll get into it and I'll demonstrate, for you guys some things. But, in the meantime, in between time, again, don't believe me. Don't take my word for it. Look it up for yourself. Islam. And it is 8:31, so I'm going to see if there's any more questions on the floor. If not, we can, like I said, we can go on and cut it here. Islam, but what they're going to come on and type that. I'm going to start playing some outro music, Islam. And then we'll end with that. So, let's see. Good old Iron Sheik. Islam. And like the prophet said, if I told you everything, you go back to sleep. Yo. Islam, and I think we're back on. So we're back on with the lot with the Ustream. If they're not giving you what you need to be able to do what you need to do, then you need to study a little bit more. Islam, you just need to study a little bit more, and try to make those distinctions between what's feudal and what's allodial. So last thing I'm gonna read here: anarchy is the absence of or distortion of any kind of political authority, and this is how you can recognize it. Absence of or distortion of any kind of political authority and manifests as political disorder and confusion. So disorder and confusion, those are two things you always can know, telltale signs, right? Telltale signs. Thus, anarchy is a violation and disengagement from any cohering principle as a common standard or purpose. And this is the political and social condition of the past and present governments operating in monopolistic form in the United States of North America. So this is what they've been doing. They've been promoting anarchy. Islam, a major problem that plagues the people and we can go in depth later next week. I'll touch on them. But change of venue was another word. That's on page 293 if you got Black's Law 4th. Codex, page 324, if you got Black's Law 4th. And I was going to make a note. If you're looking at subsection, which I was going to come out of the Civil Procedure book today, a little Civil Procedure handbook. And this is 3rd edition, 2013. You guys can probably find it on Amazon for pretty cheap. These days is that politicians and personnel in the government have become so corrupt that they are warring against the people. This is a result of anarchy in government. Islam, anarchy and treason, by the way. Somebody in the chat. So it's 8:13. We got about 15 minutes left. I'm just gonna kind of close it there. I know I said I was gonna get to the other definitions, but I'll tell them to you, and you guys can look them up on your own. And if you really want to talk about them, hit me in the chat or in the message box. Get at me on the active space. But 1444, subsection 1444, and this falls under 28 USC, United States Code, and all that good stuff. Part A and B, subsection 1 and 2. So just reading this, and I just really wanted to get this into the record. A, generally, except as otherwise expressly provided by act of Congress, any civil action brought in a state court of which the district courts of the United States have original jurisdiction may be removed